very cool to learn about Kind Bill's work with Zenbarn Farms. Been talking to these folks for a while. One of my big challenges as the convention president and the person who books the speakers is trying to balance who's doing stuff in Vermont and ultimately who should be telling us what to do in Vermont. Who's got that perspective? So we really try to find people who are national experts, regional experts, and Kind Bill is somebody who's got an amazing resume, active in multiple states, multiple industries. I don't know if you guys know his work in live resin and kind of what sort of has put him on the map to a lot of folks in the concentrate world. Kind Bill's also a cultivation expert, obviously, as most people are when they kind of start out and been doing it for a long, long time. So we were really, really excited with the opportunity to have somebody who has this decades of experience, who has been active in other states, who has seen people do stuff the wrong way, right? We're trying to avoid doing stuff the wrong way here in Vermont and build stuff for the future. So it was very much my pleasure to be able to coordinate with the Zenbarn Farms team and to be able to invite our expert, the legendary, iconic, Kind Bill Fenger. Thank you very much.
Hi. Can you guys hear me? Good. Awesome. Thanks. First of all, thanks for coming out to hear me talk. I kind of thought a lot about what to speak about today, try to write something up, and that's generally not how these things go for me. You know, I have an inordinate amount of passion, obsession, compulsion surrounded around this plant that will kind of guide me correctly and in my truth. So I want to kind of start a little bit about where, you know, this started for me, how I got to day one of regulated industry. I'll try to be quick there, but it's pertinent to me and important to the backstory of how we honor this plant moving forward, the ways that our community of practice can be inclusive, and looking for ways to be so. So that kind of sets the tone for me in commercial interaction with the plant, is how do I bridge tradition, where we come from, and how we properly honor this plant. Right? On April 12th in 1991, a helicopter crashed into my reality in South Florida, and long before I could see it, I knew that moment would change how I interfaced with life pretty much forever. I was 19, I had about 30 bikes indoor on the property with a few hundred pretty large plants outside in South Florida where there was a, you know, very hungry appetite to put a long-haired teenager in prison and bury him under the jail ticket. That turned into a very long court thing, and the net of it was I did just shy of 5 years in county jails and then federal prison. But it was 19 months before I even got to the judge. Then I was taken away from the plant even further because I was back in the world and did another 5 years on parole. At the end of my parole, I was fortunate enough to have a parole officer who actually was like, look, you're not going to get off of parole in Florida. And it's not going to happen for you. And he said, you know, I know you have some family in Colorado. They're a lot more tolerant of folks like you. And we're going to kindly invite you to leave and figure out how to get in school and get yourself. So I did that. And you know, this was 1997. Took a year and a half to get off parole. About then, things were opening up. We weren't quite to medical in Colorado, but it was very much becoming wide open. And I was right back into the industry. I've been a daily user every day since the day I started, with the exception of the time that the federal government prevented that. Unbeknownst to me, I had multiple sclerosis since I was probably 19, and was treating myself quite effectively with the plant. So as medical happened in Colorado, I was patient 700. I was helping a lot of small gardens, kind of figure out how to scale a little bit. And was the very first license for extraction. There were 3 different types of licenses. Nobody actually got a cultivation license that was specific to weed extraction. They didn't think that the edible market, that there really wasn't much of a concentrate market, would justify it. And I was like, trust me, this is going to be how this goes. And so I was fortunate enough to be in early on that. The regs came out, and I didn't get to participate in that license because of my film. So I was looking at this thing again, I was like, wow. They can't do it without me. I'm not going to allow it. I'm going to remain. And so I found a way to be a consultant and participate. And during that time, the live resin process came to fruition. Something that I had been noodling on for years. The impetus of it was that a very small fraction of humans would ever get to experience the aromas that I lived in. And the gap from a living plant thrown at a very high level to how even that experience, that cannabis is experienced by the general consumer, is large. And so I figured out that process over some time, and accidentally I was working with another gentleman who was an equipment manufacturer. I was looking at his machine and had a temperature rating on it. And I was like, hey, can I freeze this? And he was like, well, why? And I was like, well, can I? And he was like, yeah, it's rated to go to this temperature. And then I had to find a cultivator and talk him into giving me some cannabis to do this. And it worked. And the very first time we did it successfully, which was the second round, we won a bunch of awards. And like, I knew when I opened the machine, well, my first thought was like, wow, I'm never going to trim weed again. Trim dry game, which I came full circle on that for sure. But it was first thought, and then I was like, this is special. And then unfortunately, my third thought was like, people are probably going to fight about this, you know. And all that was largely true in the beginning. What I didn't see, and this is like, as an industry, something that we have to be super careful of, is that this thing that had the opportunity to express our plant in its highest form also could be used to make something that looked very good, that wasn't. And that even though I didn't recognize it as that at all, many people instantly were like, oh, we could just do a halfway job, it's going to look the same, nobody will know. And a lot of bad practices happen pretty rapidly right behind them. And new industries have a tendency to exploit efficiency that's born in good intention. So that's probably something that as a community that we can be aware of and try to do better than the general practices of big business. Right? In any scale, cannabis has an opportunity to inform what good business can look like. And that's kind of what the last 10 years of my life has looked like, where I've been fortunate to have really exceptional people around me on my teams, and we've worked big, small companies all over the country and tried to infuse culture, honor for this planet, respect for the consumer at the highest level, and then inform, and that's largely trying to manage up, that there really isn't any use of this plant that's not medicinal, whether you're interacting with it in a recreational manner or not. There's things happening there for you, that whether you want or not, that's going on, and that it should be handled as such. There was likely some arrogance involved in thinking that we could teach like corporate giants to care about stuff that didn't matter. Yeah. It's actually not how that worked. And my career turned into this thing that was like, much like the movie Office Space. And I became Bob, right? And I really did not prefer that at all. And so in my travels and through those kind of interactions, I kind of stepped back and tried to align myself with people that were quality first, which has always been my thing. And helped some small brands come into regulated market, and that was a lot more satisfying. And I had a good friend that was out here telling me about this program for about a year, and he introduced me to No Fishman and Martin, and I came out here for a 3-day consult to like look at drying weed, and I went around and met a bunch of people in the industry. I went to dispensaries, and I really fell in love with what was happening here. It was truly special. I stayed for 3 weeks on my 3-day consult. I went home for 10 days, and I moved out here. So what I think Vermont should do, and I'm not a Vermonter, I'm not here to say, but from someone that admires it highly, what it's always done well, is to really lean in on craft, on quality, on carrying all the way through, and that looks a lot like caring for your people the way you care for your planet, caring for the planet the way you care about your product, and a very complete view of the highest quality and setting the standard, and so Vermont is already a brand in and of itself that nationally, internationally represents high quality craft, community driven, very special, right? And I was compelled to come here and try to build my own small thing from this very place, because there's a high tolerance and craving within the community for things that are really good. And so that's kind of how I got here, and what's important to me within the industry. How we remain is by doing things in whatever scale you get to the same way, you know? Like, my wife asked me when I went from 20 lights to 100 in Colorado in 2009, which is a huge jump. She was like, how are you gonna do this? And I was like, exactly the same, just more, 5 times more of doing the exact same thing. And she was like, well, how are you gonna sell without weed? And I'm like, exact same way. I'm gonna make sure it's the best, you know? And then I didn't really need a gimmick. I just had to tell people that I had the good thing. And it came and got. And invariably, in that scenario, there wasn't weed for me in my jar before the next harvest, because people wanted it. And, you know, take those children. So that's kind of the key to this thing, is to, for those of us that have been in a long time, don't stop caring the way you've always cared. Lean in hard on quality, lean in hard on what makes you passionate. And there's a lot of newness in this world of ours, of cannabis, that's really still just rooted in some very old things. I collect pipes, and I bought this traditional Rastafarian steam chalice. But it was really, it's made by an Afghan potter who was actually Rastafarian, and it was informed by a traditional Afghan style. And what I didn't realize is this pipe, you smoke fresh cannabis, right? You steam, you use the moisture content of the fresh plant to steam off the fresh terpenes and cannabinoids. And I had that first experience for myself a week ago, and I was like, wow, live resin's like thousands of years old. They've been on this forever. So in the space of newness, it's built on tradition and history and a lot of hard work that a lot of folks that are nameless, faceless, that have gone for centuries, not just in the now. And so that's our, kind of charge, is to carry that into how we interact with the plant in new and meaningful ways, and realize that it's kind of been cultivating us in a long game. About 10 years ago, I realized it's cultivating. I thought I was doing this. I had all these steps. She required me to step up in a way that I never expected being able to, and then gave me the mechanism to do it. And I get to wake up every morning and go, wow, I get people high. Really, really high. It's what I'm in it for. And I kind of do it all over the place. Like sometimes it's really hard, and it often is extremely hard and not sexy at all. I don't see my kids for 6 weeks at a time sometimes. I work very, very long hours. I don't necessarily say everybody has to do that, but if you're so compelled, and I am, to chase after this thing that's kind of elusive quality that can consume you. So and that's been very been like everything. But yeah, that's kind of how I got here. Why I get up in the morning. Hopefully along the way some people have gotten inspired, and I am every day by both the young and old people in the industry. It's kind of a scary time in the world right now, but we've got some really cool young engineers coming up that are mind-blowingly open to new answers. I love to open it up.
Thanks for being here. Welcome to Vermont. I'm a very small, I'd like to say, craft grower, and I'm interested in the concept of like legalization or that sort of thing. I wonder if you thought about that for Vermont, for Colorado, nationally, and how we can kind of get there.
I have, and I was fortunate enough to work with the Mendocino Appellations Project in 2017. Randomly met a guy at a dinner, and he was like, "Oh, you have to be my friend." Took me to his farm. Ended up living on that farm for like 9 months. They were doing some really amazing things. That property had been an AIDS wasting camp in the early medical days. So they were providing care for hospice and late stage patients that were coming out of the day in the redwoods. So appellations of origin are something that can and should happen here. How you get there is finding those microclimates, identifying them, doing truly regenerative agriculture, plants in the ground, to be able to really say that it's an appellation. You likely have to probably do some breeding work on the property to show how over a strain, multiple expressions, these are the things that are coming up. I think that this is one of 2 places in the country that you can do it. Northern California has stopped. Commercial scale snuck into that area in a way, not snuck in, it's always been there, in a way that a lot of that stuff is greenwashy, authentic marketing, but there's a core of humans behind it that very much care, right, and are really doing the work. I think they identified 22 unique climates in Mendocino. So there's a lot of work to do that, but I think it's important in the long game in a small market like this, which really outsizes its population dramatically, clearly driven by people that visit. Those numbers don't add up. I'd love to think Vermonters are smoking that much weed. There's a great opportunity to honor the plant over a long time. Extraction can tend to really show seasonal variation in a great way. One of the things that I love about black rosin, when you're harvesting at peak inflorescence, like a 1 or 2 day window on this plant, and are able to take care of it perfectly, you have a snapshot of what happened for that season, for that cycle. And every single one is different. There's enough plants. There's 2, 3, 4 of them in there. Really special, even if it's 100 of the same thing. You can capture that with these modern extraction techniques in a way that just isn't possible, that you lose it in the dry cure. And that's something that's super interesting in thinking and curating of, again, a long story of quality. Not being done anywhere in the country. There's small in Mendocino, but they literally can't produce enough because that market is still highly driven by tourists. It's clearly not staying.
There you go.
There you go.
Doing great, man. So do you have a strain or family genetics that you really love?
I do. Well, so there's like a holy trinity in my world, and it's haze at the top of that trinity, and then the chem plants, and the OGs. And that's just me. And I include all really interesting tropicals and haze for ease of communication, because people kind of know what that means a little bit. One of my highest passions is to expose the general public to actual sativa cannabis. Very few people have any context for what that actually is, and like, to put that into context, I've been posting some pictures of haze plants, and people are like, what is that? And it's a 50-50 hybrid. It's a solid 50-50 indica sativa that looks like no plant anybody's seen.